Okay, so good afternoon to everyone on this session and whoever is listening to the recording. Welcome to this session on Beyond Your Imposter Syndrome. Thank you very much for joining me. I have delivered this session multiple times and I always learn something new from the people that come along and comment and contribute to the session just by answering some of the questions I have and the discussions that happened afterwards. So for the record, I will be recording this session, and once I stop presenting, I will then ask for the Q&A, which will not be recorded. So if you've got anything personal that you want to talk about, then we won't be recording, and you're welcome to share whatever feels comfortable with you. So that's what I'll be doing today. I will ask you to stay on mute, and if not, if you've got a question or I've commented or you got a comment, then please just pop it in the chat box and I'll have a look at it periodically so that you are involved in the conversation. It's not just me talking at you, but hopefully my voice and my manner is engaging enough for you to want to listen to this session. So Beyond Your Imposter Syndrome. So what are we going to be doing today? I'm going to share a little bit about me. So my name is Rosemary Wilson. I'm a consul of the Londoners of All Nations on Internations, and also one of the consuls on the London Inspired Women's Group. I've been a consul for about 2 years, I think, but I've been a member of Internations for about 5 or 6 years. So I am Rosemary Wilson. My background is in the corporate world. I used to work in some of the world's largest oil and gas organizations. I used to be in finance, and then I moved into finance and technology because I love to know how things work. I'm just very curious, always pulling things apart mentally or physically. That's just the way I am. But I really had a passion and desire to help others, and I didn't feel like I was doing that in that previous role. So I started my own business. I retrained 7 years ago, and I've been working for myself for that time, developing and growing myself as well, and becoming more of an expert in my craft, which I absolutely love, as I've shared. I work mainly with women one-to-one around career development and confidence. And imposter syndrome is one of those topics that come up time and time again. Even wherever you are in the organization, even the senior level women I work with have similar challenges. But once they speak with me and get to the heart of what's going on, they're able to get over that. But I also deliver workshops and talks around the globe for companies who are committed to investing in and retaining talent within their organization, whilst supporting a culture of diversity and inclusion. It's important for me that any company that I work with is an open culture. So that's just a little bit of my background. Happy to have a discussion with you down the line if you want to. If you are on LinkedIn, that's where I live in terms of social media. So please feel free to use that QR code to find me and connect with me. So we can you can learn from me further, or we can learn from each other. So what is this imposter syndrome? Most of you will have heard of it. I guess that's why you're here. Or you might be curious, but I'll ask you a little bit about that. So what we're going to cover today is, what exactly is imposter syndrome? What is it? Why do we use that terminology? What are some of the causes and triggers? What could be going on for you that causes it? And what could trigger you as well? What are the things that set you off? So you may be jogging along all day. And when I say jogging, I mean not literally. You could be going along smoothly, and then all of a sudden something happens that triggers you to start feeling like an imposter. So we're going to talk about some of the causes and triggers. How does it manifest itself? What does it look like? How do you behave? We'll talk a little bit about that. For me, that part is kind of the not so good news. But the good news is, what are the strategies that you can use to change your mindset? Because imposter syndrome literally is a state of mind, because you aren't an imposter, but you might feel like one. So I'll talk about some strategies, some tools and techniques that you can use to help you on your journey. And then we'll open up for a Q&A, so at which point I will have turned the recording off. So I'm just going to check that I am actually recording, which I am. Wonderful. And then I will continue. So if you've got any questions or anything that crops up for you whilst I'm talking, please just jot that down in the chat box, and I will go and have a look at it. Or remember it, jot it down, and we can talk about it at the end if you'd prefer to have a verbal conversation. So throughout this call, I will be, throughout this session, I will be asking you some questions. So they're typically self-reflection questions. So you can understand yourself better and then identify what you can start doing for yourself to help your specific situation, because we're all different. We're all very, very complex. We come with stories, narratives, experiences, all through the journey. So what works for me may not work for you, and what works for someone else may not work for you either. So I want you to self-reflect and understand what's going on for you in this session. So my first question to you is, in just one or two words rather than long phrases, what's your reason for being here? If you can just pop that in the chat box and let me know, and I will read them out for anyone listening. So I'll read some of them out for anyone listening to understand what's going on for different people, just so they can get a feel for what's going on. So what's your reason for being here? Is it because it's Saturday afternoon and you just thought, oh, I'll just go and learn something new? Is it personal development? Are you struggling with imposter syndrome? Is that something that's personal to you? What's your reason for being here? So share some of that with me, please. So self-development, wonderful. Okay, so some experiencing, yeah. Find out more about myself. Okay, title sounds interesting. Actually don't know what it is. Enlighten myself, wonderful. Okay, Ramona. Difficult week at work. Okay, so difficult week at work because of imposter syndrome, or difficult week at work, so this is something for you to kick back and relax. Hopefully it's something for you to kick back and enjoy. Okay, setting up your consultancy business. Yeah, that's one, definitely. Only recently learned the concept. Okay, wonderful. So lots there. I will definitely be covering most of that. If there is anything that I do not cover, please let me know at the end, and I will make sure that I go over it with you so that you make sure you get something personal out of this session. I always like people to go away with at least one thing that they can either learn or act as a reminder for them when they step away from listening to me. So what is imposter syndrome? So for those of you who've never heard of it, or anyone who wants a reminder, so I call it imposterism as well, all of the above, feeling like a fake. So what is it? It's an internalized fear of that you might be exposed as a fraud or a fake. So you'll be doing something in your work, but you actually don't feel entitled to be there because you don't feel as if you know enough. So you feel like someone's going to tap you on the shoulder and ask you to leave because you feel like an imposter. That is like the basis of it. It can look like many different guises, but that's the basics of it. You feel like you're a fake or a fraud, that you don't know enough, fear of being found out, that you don't know enough, that you're not good enough. And these are all fears. They're all internalized fears. Some people have them every single day when they go to work. So some people have them occasionally or periodically, but I'll talk a little bit more about how it happens, how it manifests itself in a second. So these are just a few of the phrases that come up around feeling like an imposter. It's also said that Maya Angelou, she had written numerous amounts of books, I think 14 or something, and she still felt that someone was going to tap her on the shoulder and say, you're not an author, you're not qualified to be delivering these messages. And Maya Angelou is amazing. She felt as if she was an imposter at times, which is crazy, but it happens. So what's next? So how might IS affect you? So if you're not sure if it's you, or you don't know how to put a name or a phrase on it, how might IS affect you, imposter syndrome affect you? So it's a definite sense of a lack of self-belief. So you might be doing something, but you doubt your ability and your capabilities to do the work, or to do the project, or to do what's being asked of you. So it's a lack of belief in your own capabilities, a lack of self-belief. There is, you might feel inadequate. So you might be looking at other people and feeling they're so much better than me. I'm not good enough. I can't be done. My boss has asked me to do something, or I'm setting up my own business. I feel inadequate in that I'm not fully equipped to deliver this either piece of work or this service for this organization or the organization you're working in. So you feel inadequate. Self-doubt Again, that goes along with self-belief. You're constantly doubting yourself and doubting your abilities. Some people, they feel undeserved of success. So they might be doing great work. I'm working with a woman at the moment, and she is amazing, absolutely amazing, but she doesn't see how incredible she is. She just thinks what she's done was achieved by fluke. She's not as intelligent or as gifted as others. And she thinks, well, anybody could do this work. But this is just one person. And I hear this story time and time again with the women I work with. They think that, oh, anybody can do this. I'm not that special. And these kind of imposter syndrome has a tendency to allow these feelings to grow, that you're not that good, you're anybody can do this work. You kind of brush it off. I'm not that special, I'm not that important. Quite often you compare to impair, so you look at someone else who's doing the same work or different work, or at the same level as you, and rather than saying, oh, this is amazing, I aspire to be like this person, you look at that person and you say, I'm not as good as that person. So that's what I call compare to impair. Rather than comparing to uplift yourself, you compare to bring yourself down. So rather than having kind words to say to yourself, you have quite not very kind and mean words that you say to yourself. I'm not very good at that, person's better than me. You could prefer to stay under the radar, so you could be doing quietly delivering really amazing work, and you send it at midnight. I'm looking around, I'm kind of being it's a bit of a joke, but you send it at midnight and hope nobody knows that you sent it, but obviously it's an email, so everybody knows when you sent it. But you prefer to stay under the radar. You prefer your work to go quietly. You deliver it, but you don't want the spotlight on you, just in case someone says to you, this is not good enough, because that will again make you still feel like an imposter. It will enforce the belief that you are an imposter. So that could be happening for you. Perfectionism, that can be a sign of having imposter syndrome, that you do your work repeatedly until it's absolutely phenomenal before you deliver it, because you don't feel it's ever good enough, because you feel like it's you're a fake or a fraud or an imposter. So these are some of the ideas of what could be going on for you behind that imposter syndrome. Obviously, it involves a lot more work to identify what could be going on for you, but these are some of the signs of how IS might be affecting you. And ultimately, you actually stop enjoying what you do. Most of us work hard, we train hard to get to a point in life, but then we stop enjoying it because we have all this self-doubt going on. We have all this this inner critic going on with us, telling us it's not good enough or someone else is better than you. So you actually stop enjoying what you do. I believe that we're here for a purpose. We're all here for a reason. And when you stop enjoying what you do, then it stops you from being good at what you do, because you're doubting yourself all the time. And I think we all deserve to enjoy what we choose to do for a living. I definitely believe that. I've been on my own journey, and I do believe it's important to enjoy what you do. So this is a poll. I don't have the poll what's the word option on this version of Zoom. I have it on my own option, but just a call out, how many of you are struggling with imposter syndrome now that I've explained it a little bit more, or high intensity of self-doubt? So if you can answer yes, no, or not sure, so I can gauge the kind of percentage of what's going on for you. It's great when I've got the chart where I can actually see the percentage, so you can also see for yourself. But we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, with just you responding. Okay, so difficult week. So I'm just going to go back through. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that's the majority of this group of 10 people. The majority, I'm going to go with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7 have said it. If you don't want to respond, that's fine. But I'm going to go with that's 7 out of 10. That's 70% of you have struggled with, or struggle with it a little bit at some point or at the moment. So thank you very much. So let's have a look at what does that mean. So I'll get to that in a second. So 70%, remember that number. So what causes imposter syndrome? So it can be a number of things. As I said, we're all very, very complex. Thanks for responding as well. Hopefully I said that already. So what causes it? So it can be a general lack of confidence. So you could have had that from childhood. It could have started with you when you were at school, high school, usually as we go into our teens. It could be a job that you've done. You could have had a boss that wasn't very supportive. And that's instilled in you a certain sense of a lack of confidence. It could be that you're generally not a confident person. So it can be a few things behind that. A fear of failure. I can't tell you the amount of times that a fear of failing has stopped most of the people that I work with, or most of the people I know, either in my own professional life that I've met or come across, my own friends. The fear of failure stops them from doing anything, because they're then going to believe that they are an imposter and that they shouldn't have tried the event or the exercise or project anyway. So that fear of failure around it can cause imposter syndrome. Perfectionism, as I described earlier, about wanting to do everything so perfect that you're never criticized. You could already be a high achiever, and there are so many high achievers out there who still believe that what they've done was achieved by a fluke, as if they had no input into achieving what they have. It was, as if some magic wand came at them and made them into a high achiever to create all these amazing things in the world. Even Albert Einstein, I believe, had said at one point he couldn't believe the work he'd done was anything other than being a fluke or a bit of luck. Albert Einstein, revered the world, the globe, around. So, it can be different levels of things that you just don't believe in yourself. You could have a sense of low self-esteem that could have been traveling with you throughout the years. Childhood condition. So you start believing that your work is never going to be good enough, and that you have no right to be delivering work because you feel like a fraud or a fake. So it could be childhood conditioning, could have been something your parents said, or your mum or dad said to you, or maybe you had a sibling who was slightly different when they were studying, and your parents favored that child over you. So there could be a number of things going on behind the scenes. But the most important thing is not to worry about what causes it, but not to worry, but to figure out what you can do to change how you're feeling. So that's the most important part. When we're struggling with things like this, it's so important to go over and over and over the way we feel bad, rather than looking for ways to feel better about ourselves. So that's something I see quite often. So who does IS affect? It does affect professionals and students. A lot of students in college or school and university struggle with imposter syndrome as well. They tend to compare themselves to other students. If a student has a higher level or a higher grade, they'll compare themselves, and it can be impairing. Professionals do it, even senior level executives. I work with a lot of senior level female executives, and even they compare themselves to other women in their industry. And rather than thinking, oh, that's great, there's a lot of women at the top level of my industry, they're looking at, oh, I'm not as good as her. I'll never be that good. And rather than focusing on your achievements. So that's the kind of who it affects. It does affect both men and women. It's not something that women are blessed with, excusing my humor. IS is not something that only women struggle with. Men do too. We just talk about it differently, or men generally won't talk about it at all. Women will do. It does affect intelligent individuals. I'm not necessarily talking about academic intelligence, but people who are progressive and growing already. So it does affect people who have ambition, who are intelligent and wanting to do something different with their lives. It's not limited to any type of profession, and it does affect people who have already achieved something in life. So if you are struggling with imposter syndrome, the chances are you've probably already done a lot, and you probably are already a high achiever. You just can't see it. You just can't see it for yourself. So that's just a little bit of story around who it affects and what causes it. It's likely to occur when you're out of your depth, so you feel a bit struggled, like the spotlight shining on you. So you might be newly promoted, a new job, when you're being given feedback because someone says to you, oh, this was great work, but you could do X, Y, and Z to improve it. So that constructive feedback of telling you you could improve something is making you feel as if your work wasn't good enough, and I'm not clever enough, I don't know enough. So you kind of shrink back into yourself rather than taking that feedback on board and doing something with it. So there's also a fear of change, in that, you're comfortable where you are, and when you're doing something different or something new, you start to feel like you're not capable of doing something different or something new. Starting your own business, the question you could ask yourself is, who am I to offer this as a service, or who am I to create this product? So the person that was starting their consultancy, you could be asking yourself, am I good enough to do this? Who am I? Who do I think I am? Those types of questions. So this is all quite normal and quite natural. So here's the good news. Here, let's go in from here on in. We'll see what you can do about it. So here's a new perspective for you. It is irrational, because if I ask you, are you an imposter, a fake, or a fraud? You will actually say, no, I'm not. If I ask you that, but yet your mind is telling you you're a fake or a fraud or an imposter. So it's very normal to have these feelings or thoughts. It's not, in meaning, it's not unusual to have these thoughts. It's what happens after you have the thought. How long does it stay with you? How does it affect you? That's important. You're not the only one who feels this way. And remember, I said to you about 70%. So over 70% of people will experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. Some people will take it to the, sorry, sounds a bit morbid, take it to the grave, in that they will never find a way to get over it. Some people do. Sometimes it's a snapshot in time. You've got a new job, you're starting your own business, and once you become more confident with what you're doing, then the imposter syndrome disappears. So it can be like a different chapter in your life. And some people have the chapter, they have the book for the whole of their lives. I'm here to help you think about it differently, about what you can do so you can start enjoying what you do more and be better at it, or more fulfilled is important. For me, if you've got imposter syndrome, it demonstrates that you want to grow, you are ambitious, or you want to do something that makes a difference to others. And when I say ambitious, I'm not talking about you want to conquer the whole wide world. I'm talking about you're happy to do something rather than just sitting on the couch watching Netflix every day. No offense to anyone who likes sitting on the couch watching Netflix all day. They're just not likely to suffer from imposter syndrome because they're not doing anything that is demanding of them. So it's, for me, it's a good sign if you're struggling with imposter syndrome, because it means you're trying to better yourself, or better the word. So I call them growing pains. When you have growth, you have pains that go with the growth. So I see them all as positive things or helpful things. So what practical action can you take? So the biggest thing is to start watching and being aware of your language. I've got a little table coming up to help you with the types of languages, the type of language you might use. So what is a typical thing you say? And what I find with the people I work with, they say something and they become stuck on repeat. So I'm not very good at, or I did this piece of work and it was awful. That's what they're saying to themselves. Would you say that to someone else who deliver a piece of work? Well, God, that piece of work you could have done better. So watch your language, watch what you say to yourself. Consider that. Would you say that to someone else? Be kinder to yourself, be kinder with your language, even in the small things that you say. Be more helpful and encouraging of yourself. Watch your language, it's really important. So these are some of the phrases. I've got a whole list of these. I could write a whole book of phrases, but when you say I can't, you say, I don't know how to yet, because I can't means I'm not even going to try. That's the signal you're telling your brain. I don't know how to yet. So how can I start developing my knowledge to do this new piece of work? What can I read? Who can I talk to? Where can I go and get help? I'm not going to read all of these out. You get the point. What if I fail? What about I'm determined to succeed? I will find a way to succeed. Rather than having the left side of these phrases overtake you, Start using the right side of these phrases to help you to become stronger in what you're doing. And even if you don't believe it at that moment in time, if you continue in the direction of believing it, you will get there, because every single day you'll start taking the action, and the self-talk will become more encouraging. So you'll start taking the steps towards success rather than taking the steps towards, I'm not even going to try, I'm not good enough, I'm useless, I'm not good at all those types of things. So I'll just leave that. Feel free to take a screenshot if you just want some basics to help you get through the way you speak to yourself. But we can talk about this again at the end. You can ask questions relevant to yourself. Slow down. I see us, we're racing. You know, this pandemic, if anything, has caused everybody to slow down and think differently about what they want. We are so busy rushing around doing everything. Just slow down, take a minute. And when you start, if any signs of that imposter comes into your head, just stop. If you hear yourself, you're more, remember, you're more self-aware. This is the types of things you're saying to yourself. Slow down and you say, now, what I'm saying to myself, is that helpful to me? Is that helping me get to where I want to go? Or is it stopping me? So slow down, take a moment. When you hear that imposter's voice or that inner critic coming in, just stop for a minute and ask, is that voice true? Where does it come from? What can I do to move around that voice that's telling me I'm not good enough? So start acknowledging what you're saying to yourself that's not helpful, so that you can start changing your behavior and your thoughts. You cannot solve the problems that you have with the same thinking cause to create them. So here he is, Albert Einstein. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So if you are on repeat with the same language, the same behaviors, you will get the same results. So you will have to do something differently if you want a different result. It's that simple. Struggling with imposter syndrome and don't believe you're good enough. So what is fact versus fiction? Literally write your chart, write down what is factual and what is fiction. Write what is true, factual. What is fiction? What is it that you've made up that is not true? So usually when you say I'm not good enough, and I would ask you, well, what facts have you got to back that up? You won't give me a list of failures. You'll give me a list of, you'll go, and then I'll start asking you about what you did at university, what you did at college, what you did at school, what you did in your last job, your first job. I'll start asking you what were the achievements that you've got, and then you'll start listing out what's factual. And then your fiction list will grow ever smaller than the one you think you had, the one that was in your head. So literally, it's a written exercise. Fact at the top as a header, fiction on the left or right, whichever side you want to do, right and left. Fact versus fiction. Two headings. Write what is factual about your career, your growth, your development, your learning, and what is fiction. Write down why you think you're not good enough and tell me what are the stories that you're creating. And I would absolutely love to see this list. I'm imagining the fact will be really long and the fiction is going to be short. If you've got anything on there, you are not an imposter. So that's a really, really good exercise for you. I encourage you all to do that if you're struggling or have struggled with, if you're currently struggling with imposter syndrome. And use this to change your narrative, change your story, change the story that you tell yourselves on a daily basis, that you're not good enough, I might fail, I'm not very good at, I'm not successful. All of those things that you've been telling yourself for quite some time. Change that story. Turn it into a new story of success, of abilities rather than inabilities. Change the narrative and be more encouraging of yourself. Look at yourself as your own cheerleader. Be your own cheerleader. Look at yourself as someone who's championing your own success rather than trying to drag yourself down. And use the power of your imagination. I keep this slide in because I always think that when we worry over things, we catastrophize. We always look to the future, and it's sometimes it's dark when we start getting anxious and worrying. We rarely use the power of our imagination to blow up the wonderful things that might happen. We always tend to blow up the negative things or the unhelpful things that we think are going to happen that never do. So use the power of your imagination to make that picture about why you're good enough, why you're successful, why you deserve it. Use the power of your imagination to elevate that side of you. And again, you can't wake up tomorrow and just do all these things that I'm telling you. But if you focus on one or two things and start taking action daily, you'll start building that muscle that will help you overcome any imposter syndrome. Journaling is great. Some people love journaling, some people don't. But if you have a little book somewhere, or you can do it on your phone, you can do it audibly or visually, whatever your preference is. I've got people who do it on a wall. So I'm doing, my wall is behind me. I've got a big whiteboard behind me, white wall behind me. Stick it up there. What are your achievements? What are your factual stories? What's the fiction that you're creating? So list your achievements, list your values so that you can stay true to your values. I bet if I ask you your values and what you struggle with in terms of your imposter syndrome, I bet they're misaligned. Like, my value is to help others. My value is to grow a successful business. If I allow imposter syndrome into my life, that will stop me helping others, and it will stop me living my values of building a successful business. So the two can't live together. I can't have imposter syndrome and live to my values. They just don't work. So list out your values, and is imposter syndrome stopping you from living true to your values? That's another way you can journal in your book or your audio. Write down your achievements. What are your values? How important are your values to you? What are your ideas? Write down your ideas. They may not be ready to come into fruition now, but maybe in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, they may arrive and be born. Write down your fears out of your head onto paper, or out of your head into someone else's head. Share your fears with someone, or share it with your phone or your laptop or your tablet. Get the fears out of your head, because they're going swirling round, and you can never answer your own questions. So get your fears out, and that will really help you. I did this session a couple of years ago, and someone sent me a message afterwards, or a similar session, and she said, I wrote my fears down, and that was the best night's sleep I ever had. And I was like, that's great. If it simply just helped her to get sleep better, for me, that's amazing. But your fears can really grip you and stop you being successful. So just write your fears down. And look at the resources you have, webinars, seminars. There's so many things online. You don't have to travel anywhere. Books, podcasts, articles, they're everywhere. So focus on what you want to change and look at your resources. So has anything I've said so far resonated with anyone? So I'm going to answer that question at the end, Alison, but yeah, I don't know when you asked that. Has anything stood out for anyone, or has anyone suddenly got that moment where they're like, oh, that's what I've been doing, I'm going to change that? Has anyone felt that yet, or shall I wait until the end to see what's going on for you and asking the questions? Okay, I'm going to leave you to think about that. So my question was, has anything I've said so far really resonated with you that you could do differently? So the question I've got in the chat box is, does it only affect people who work? So generally, yes, and it's not limited to any particular profession. So I think I answered that question on one of the slides earlier. I'm not sure when your question came in. So yes, it generally affects people who are doing something that stretches them. So it's usually work or studying, or starting your own business, something that is out of your comfort zone. It could be a sport you're doing, it can be. But as I said, if you're on the couch not doing much, there's probably imposter syndrome not going to come in. Or maybe it's imposter syndrome why you are on the couch. But there's just things to think about. I won't go into a long debate about sitting on the couch, because I enjoy sitting on the couch watching Netflix. I really do. Anyway, so What can you do? So everything I just shared were different ways that you can do. So I've tried to include different types of personality type. I've tried to include tools and techniques for different personality types. So external support. So if you are working, maybe you've got something in-house that you can speak to. You can connect with groups online, or when we go back to the seeing people in the real world, you can connect with people offline, so you get to talk to people. But my encouragement is, don't sit there on your own struggling with what's going on for you. If you're happy to figure it out, that's great, but sometimes figuring it out can take years, when one conversation could take 10 minutes, a minute, half an hour, that helps you to change. So think about that. Talking therapy, obviously, I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I help women at different stages of their lives. I also work with some teen groups to build up their self-esteem and self-confidence. So, I'm a very good sounding board for this type of behavior, because I can literally listen to the words you use and say, you could try X to begin with and see how you get on. So it could be a 5-minute conversation that it makes a difference to you. So look for and your organizational support, but don't struggle on your own. Get some support for yourself. So before I go into the Q&A, so if you've got any questions, just think about them now. But something I've said may have resonated with you. So identify and commit to at least one thing I've said. I know I've given you a lot of information, but hopefully one thing stood out for you. You can listen to this again. I'll send the recording. So go through it and just write down what you identify with, and commit to one thing. Commit to changing or doing one thing that helps you change, and create an action plan. How can you start thinking differently? I talked about the self-talk. How can you start having a nicer conversation, a better, more helpful conversation with yourself, a kinder conversation? So what will you do differently? What will you commit to, rather than I'm going to try to? What will you do? What can you do to help future proof this? So in the event that you struggle with imposter syndrome again, what can you do that if it comes back again, or it starts knocking, what can you do to make sure it doesn't take you out or take you down or affect you greatly? So that journal is really good. What I did, go back to what I did last time and then just put it into practice again. Those types of things, how you can future proof that feeling. And decide, ask, and engage an objective accountability partner. So if you're going to go with the offline or online groups, see if there's someone in that group who will be your accountability partner. If you've got a really good friend, someone you trust, talk to them. Maybe they'll be your accountability partner to help you, rather than going it on your own. Obviously, as I said, I am a talking therapy. I'm not a talking therapy, but do you need talking therapy? Is it something psychological going on for you? Do you need counseling? Will a coach or a mentor be able to help you? Will your coach and mentor be your well, they should be, because that's what you pay for, your accountability partner or your success buddy. Will they help you and get you through whatever you're struggling with? Or have a look in your organization. Is there some support and accountability or a success partner that can help you? So those are the action steps for you to take away after this session. I'm here, so I'm happy for you to get in touch with me. Again, there's my QR link, so please feel free to connect with me. If you want to have a conversation with me, I'm also happy to do that. I usually offer people a 30-minute call to talk about what's going on for them, which can be really helpful during that time. But you can also explore if you'd like to work with me over a longer period of time, because you want to get to the heart of something and really make changes in your life. So that's me. I'm going to stop the recording now, and we're going to go into Q&A. Happy to go back to that slide for connection if you need to, or where you found me, so you can connect with me also on Intonations. So I'm just going to stop